back, folks, to the WP Tonic Roundtable Show. This is episode 574. We record this live every Friday at 8:30, around 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, if I can get my equipment working correctly. Got a great panel, got a guest panelist. We've got Joe Casabona with us. Got some great stories. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. Let's have Heather first. Who's roughing it in Hawaii? Must be terrible, mustn't it?
Hi, I'm Heather Renzi. I am the digital
You want to introduce yourself, Heather?
Oh, you can't hear me? Or you can't hear yourself again?
No sound, Heather. Let's try John. John,
no. Hold on. It's
you. Oh, it's me again, is it?
It's you.
Yes, I am Heather Renzi. I'm the digital solutions lead for The Difference, and I'm also known as the Unicorn Whisperer, and I can just keep on talking while Jonathan can't hear me. I'm also the author of Birth of a Unicorn. Right. And how about Spencer goes?
Yeah, right. Let John go. Off you go, John.
John Locke from LockdownSEO.com.
And I've got Joe. Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Joe Casabona. I am a podcaster, educator, and developer.
And I've got JJ. Would you like to introduce yourself?
John James Jacoby, work at Sandhills Development, at Twitter at JJJ, a software developer, Buddy Press, TV Press, Sugar Calendar, security team, all sorts of stuff.
And I've got Spencer. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Spencer Foreman from launchflows.com, WPLaunchify.com.
And before we go into the main stories, I just want to promote our major sponsor. That's Ginster. Ginster Hosting. It's a specialized WordPress hosting provider. If you're looking for real performance for your clients, you've got a membership site, a WooCommerce site, a learning management system website. You will need performance and quality hosting. That's what you get with Kinster. Go over to Kinster, have a look at some of their plans. I suggest that you buy one for yourself or for your client. When you do that, can you tell them that you heard about them on the WP Tonic show? It really helps Kinster and it really supports the show as well. So let's go straight into it before my technology breaks down again. So on to story one. Elementor raises eyebrows with your Google Ads targeting full site editing. What did you think of this one, Spencer?
This is a Curb Your Enthusiasm one. Okay, why are they crying over the fact that like what's good for the goose is good for the gander? I mean, are they so precious that I've lost the whole thing. Are they so precious that they feel that like Elementor isn't going after this particular market? Isn't this obvious the whole time? I mean, it seems to me that that was the whole point of it, right? Is that Elementor is developed to the point where you just turn it on and it eliminates the need for futzing around with Gutenberg or the classic editor. And the fact that anybody would even bring this up is sort of interesting to me because it's like, it's totally within the realm of what you would see from, Automatic to advertise or, totally within the realm of let's say a Tavern article in the past about 4.5 years later, Gutenberg finally has like a button you press to make type bold. So why is it that Elementor can't go directly to the end user and be like, hey guys, it's real easy to go full site editing right now today?
Yeah, that's the, what do you reckon, Joe? I think that's the interesting thing, not the actual article. It's that it was an article, that it was that the Tavern thinks it's newsworthy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, so this is like a newsworthy thing that a major plugin is trying to get more people by using a term that's used in WordPress, right? It's full site editing is certainly WordPress or Gutenberg didn't invent that term, right? It's just something that they're rolling out now. Elementor is letting people know, hey, we already have that. It's like super weird that anytime certain people feel slighted in the WordPress community, it's like it's news. Like, can you believe Wix went after WordPress in a Super Bowl ad or whatever? Like, who cares? You brag about having 40% of the web all the time. People are trying to get a piece of that as well. It's certainly not as bad as, say, Jetpack Sherlocking independent developers, right? That's Yeah. If you're gonna play the game, then play the game. Don't be mad that other people are playing too.
So what do you reckon, JJ?
Oh gosh, where do I start? This is like a nuanced article that if it's like for insiders only is kind of what this article is specifically geared for, because the article is like it's like non-news if you don't know who is upset about it, and when you do know who's upset about it, you're like, well, of course they're upset. Of course they are, and
I wonder who that is. I wonder who that
because
is.
this isn't so, no kidding. So because it isn't the first time, right? Like the first time that I remember this happening was with WPMU Dev, was with Inksub, like when WordPress 3.0 was about to be a thing and multi-site was getting merged into WordPress officially. They went and bought WPMU.org or .com and like thinking that multi-site and multi-user was like a thing, and people were upset about it. But it doesn't matter to most people. And it's like a non-event unless you know that it's an event. And then you're like part of the 1% who like, it's like, oh, some drama. But like, I completely agree with everyone else that like the key words themselves are fair game for anyone. And Elementor has earned the right to market to those keywords more so than, or the same as many other people. So good for them. I think this is smart for them to do it.
I want to add one thing on a legal twist to add to what John just triggered in my head there, is that, you know how there's the irony we spoke of last week of how the legal trademark WordPress can't be used and the logo can't be used. And that despite that, Automattic, got the license to use singularly and so on and so forth when it's supposed to be commercially licensed for the benefit of the organization or foundation. What would be amazingly cool as a total, black hat technique would be if the guys at Elementor went out and trademarked a bunch of terms from our community and then just started flipping the middle finger to Automattic about that. We're sorry, we've already trademarked the term full site editor, and here it is. Because that's exactly the goose and gander here that I find so strange. It's like, you guys are all over everybody about every little thing protecting this fairy tale of yours. Well, Elementor's got enough oomph now that let's take the gloves off. Let's see how it goes down. Because remember last year, my prediction was at some point, there will be Elementor version of WordPress. And I can almost assure you I'll be in that community at some point or another, whether it's by itself or not, but let's see it.
What do you reckon, Heather?
This is a non-starter. I've been designing my own websites by using the inspect version of Chrome tools forever. So, if they want full web page editing, if they want to go after this and explain to people, the people that know what it is are going to know what it is. The people that don't know what it is, it's smart for Elementor to like newsjack this way with the Google ads. And anyone that's upset, people gonna hate. So that's all this is.
All right, John. Any last thoughts, John?
Yeah, it's evident from this that WordPress, Automattic specifically, they see Elementor as a competitor to WordPress.com. Otherwise, they wouldn't be getting this upset. The whole Gutenberg project is an attempt to compete with things like Squarespace and Wix. So the way that certain people from Automattic or certain people in the community are upset at this, well, if you work at Automattic, I guess you would be upset because you see this as a threat to your job. But what confuses me is some of the people in the comments that don't work at Automattic, they're just random people. It's like, oh, Elementor, you're biting the hand that feeds you. Like you wouldn't even have something to build on if WordPress didn't exist. And I don't know, it just makes no sense. You tell people for years and years, if you don't like it here, go ahead and fork it. And like Spence said, I think that at some point they might do that. But, you tell people like this all the time, my way or the highway. And then when somebody else has a competing product, you get mad. It just makes no sense.
Oh, I think we got some other stories coming in. It'll be the same topic, actually. On to the next story. Clubhouse is recording your conversations. That's not even its worst privacy problem. That's a really big surprise. I'm shocked. Heather, I think we first met on Blab. The reason I thought this story was interesting is Clubhouse itself, because I think in the podcasting audio area, there's still the possibility of new products, new platforms. And since Blab, Clubhouse seems to have taken the imagination a bit. What do you reckon, Heather?
Well, so here's the thing. I mean, like, for me, Clubhouse seems to be filling the need for people to leave voicemails for each other around, like, oh, yeah, I saw something there. I mean, it's a weird platform. Like, I'm not an audio person. I'm somebody that, like, was so happy when texting became a thing, because, like, now I never have to answer my phone again. And I mean, yes, Clubhouse fills a need for people. Clubhouse is a platform, just like Line in Japan, like, for those people that really, really like to share images with each other, and like the emoji group that like to share emojis. So there's always a niche. There's always a type of person that has to share in a certain way, and whether it's going to work or not, and last, I don't know. It could be a brand new social platform that could last for a while or not. As far as the article goes, it's about privacy and like, of course, just like any new app, the privacy concerns are like exactly the same, and they're worse for any new company. I mean, this reminded me just this week, Gab, just like Parler and every other company, like every other new social media company, big surprise, was hacked. And I expect Clubhouse to be hacked pretty much like anytime soon. So if you're on Clubhouse, expect your data to, and all of the data you uploaded to it to be like open on the internet, probably within a month or two. Because the people that create these platforms, they sacrifice security and privacy for the speed of getting it out there.
Yeah, sure. So what do you reckon, Joe? Do you think it's a new interesting platform, or and you got the security question, but I think Heather covered that. But what do you reckon for the future of Clubhouse?
Clubhouse is basically a feature that has born itself in a pandemic where people are like longing for like coffee shop discussions, right? That's what it is. The Clubhouse is a feature I got from the Upgrade podcast, where they also said it's got that VC tech bro stink all over it, right? And that's exactly what it is. I saw a tweet that was like, it's really nice of people on Clubhouse to teach us how to make millions before they make their first million. I don't see Clubhouse being around in 3 years, especially because Twitter is rolling out Spaces. Instagram can easily do this if they want to. Facebook can easily do this if they want to, unless there's some compelling reason to stay on Clubhouse, and maybe there will be, right? I just don't see it sticking around. I immediately was put off from it because in order for me to use the invites, I need to give them access to my whole contacts book. Like, that's crazy. I would never do that. Like, because then they have my dad's phone number, and my dad is in like almost 70. Clubhouse probably means something very different to him. So it's just like, I didn't like it from the beginning. I secured my username on it because it generated a lot of buzz, but I immediately thought, people think this is going to replace podcasting when it's not, because they are recording the conversations, but those recordings aren't available to their users. You have to be there. Podcasting is a very much an on-demand medium for the most part. And the people who live stream are doing it, but there's a reason that every podcaster doesn't live stream.
Yeah. So what do you reckon, John?
You know, for me, I'm not super interested in Clubhouse, though I know some people that seem to be getting some value out of it. These privacy concerns, like they record your stuff, they have tracking pixels. That just kind of indicates that that's how they're going to, you know, make money is off of your data and your, you know, all your information. But you know, the platform itself, I think it'll be here for a little while, but I think it'll go the way of Blab and Meerkat and some of these other ones. I think it's just, it's a way for people to pitch that they're experts. From what I understand, you know, a lot of people are turned off to it because it has that kind of like, I'm a life coach and type of vibe where it's people pitching stuff above their head. So
Well, there
we'll
go.
see. We'll see what happens.
I don't know. Shall we go on to the next? Well, what do you reckon, JJ? Got any comment about Clubhouse?
I mean, I like social networks. I don't use very many of them, but I do like them. So in terms of like it being a new one that is somewhat unique and like trying to do something for like an audience that I think is like underserved, I think it's neat. But I do agree with everyone else that like I really don't trust the promise of it being ephemeral and like it'll be deleted and it's just for now is like I didn't trust it then and I don't trust it now and I won't trust it tomorrow. And so I sort of expect that if I'm using Clubhouse that it's always going to be there, someone's going to be able to hear it and read it. And that doesn't sit super well with me, so I choose not to use it. But I did do what Joe did and I reserved my username because that's like the right thing to do, right? So
well, I haven't. What do you reckon, Spencer? The final word.
I think that's the takeaway from all this, by the way, is that first of all, I love Heather's use of the term tech bro. That really sums it up because my experience having dealt with Silicon Valley types for years is that's the perfect way to sum it up. And there used to be a show that, I don't know if they're coming back, but Silicon Valley, it was like spoofing on this. But the thing that I've learned is whether you use these things or not, the first thing you always have to do when it comes out is go reserve your name. Like you really have to get your name before anybody else. So if you have any of those like email notices, like Product Hunt and so forth, if any of them look remotely promising, I go and get my name. And that's the takeaway. Like use it, don't use it. Make sure no one else gets discovered when they go searching for you in Google because they're over on blah.com, you know, putting up pictures of their dog or something.
All right. On to story 3. Why WordPress.com Spotify deal is bad for podcasting. So, Joe, you made a little bit of a stir with this one. Why did you write this? And basically, I totally agree with you. But give us a quick synopsis, Joe.
I think if the announcement over on WordPress.com didn't devalue creating podcasts so much, I wouldn't have been so upset. But the high level overview is Spotify had an investors call thing last week. And one of the things that they announced was that they have partnered with WordPress.com, that their product Anchor will be able to take WordPress.com blog posts, convert them to text to speech, and then voila, you have your very own podcast. And the way the article opens up is you've already done the hard part of writing. Why not make it a podcast? And then later on, they say, grow your audience, make money. Do you know what the most boring thing on the planet is? It's
listening to me, basically.
It's listening to computer generated speech to text. That's not compelling.
Welcome to
yeah. The only people, I say this in the article, I'll let you can read my thoughts. I'll let everybody else speak. But the thing that bothers me is that WordPress.com and Spotify benefit because they're eating all the data from you, and they're trying to sell you coal and tell you it's a diamond because it's like, here's a new content stream for you. Here's podcasting is easy. Just write words and we'll make it audio. they don't talk about the
You
accessibility.
know what?
benefits.
Really, I see. I thought it was a great piece, and I totally agreed with it. But I think there's a bigger picture to it, actually, Joe. This is the alternative universe of the great leader that thinks Jetpack is a great product, that thinks it wasn't blue collar consultants that really pushed it. Was Jetpack that believes that Bluehost is a great hosting provider. You know, it's the alternative fantasy world of the great leader world and his worldview and the fantasy that he lives in.
I'll believe he believes that when he converts his podcast to text to speech.
So what do you reckon, JJ? Do you think it's part of the alternative universe worldview? Do you?
I feel like there's like there's I'd love to see the JPEG compression algorithm applied to like a blog post that you write, then the podcast that the computer generates that then gets like strung out to text that then gets looped back into Spotify. Like I want to see how it eventually becomes just a bag of eels. Like it's just like it makes no sense. But I do like the idea and like the plus side of it is, even though the conflation between WordPress.com and .org is like a very real, very annoying thing, that the exposure that the community gets, or that the WordPress project gets from something that is as big as Spotify, or is sort of, there's like Spotify universe doesn't really like overlap with WordPress super often, right? Or there's anytime that there's something like that happens where Spotify users might get introduced to WordPress in any way, I think is good. I think is strong. I think that's the only plus side that I see, frankly, is that partnerships that WordPress.com has, those end up, there is a trickle effect there in the world, like in the news bubble or in people's imaginations or minds, and like that's good. That's the only thing that I like about it.
What do you reckon, Eva?
I think that this is something that people need to understand is, I mean, it is hard to record a blog. To record a podcast, rather. It's hard to write a blog. Like I have a whole bunch of blogs that are sitting there that like I could easily do text to speech and stuff, but it's not going to happen.
I've got new sound effects, Eva. I think it's coming from you. Actually.
Well, no, I mean, I know, like, the thing is, I have all the apps that could automatically do it. I could do it with Amazon Poly and that, but I mean, it's just not the right thing. It's not the same thing. And I know that people would find it inauthentic.
All right, fair enough. That was Matt. So John, what do you reckon, John? Another great idea.
I don't know if you've ever seen YouTube channels where it's kind of like a robotic voice, like it's reading news. Like this is WP Tonic. Today they had this episode. That's what this reminds me of.
It is exactly the same. That's why it's a terrible idea. You know, it really shows two groups. I don't know if it's just, I don't know. It's almost like they know nothing about the platform, and because they know nothing about the platform, that they can persuade themselves that it's a good idea.
To be fair, some of the podcasts my husband listens to, it's the actual person's voice, and they sound like that. Like they sound like it's a robot.
Well, ask him to listen to WP Tonic. There we go. What do you reckon, Joe?
It's really that they don't care, right? This is just another value add. They don't care that they're going to potentially, like I did quick back in the napkin math in that blog post, if even 1% of WordPress.com users use this feature, we're going to get like 600,000 robot podcasts, which is double the amount of active podcasts right now since October. Like, but again, it's that they're making their AI better and they're making their algorithms better, and maybe text to speech will be better later. But this is if they extolled, is that the right word? If they talked about the accessibility benefits of this, I would buy what they're selling. Great.
Yeah.
For people who maybe prefer to consume content audibly, or our site who can't read very well, or nearsighted or farsighted or whatever, and they get to consume that content in a way that works best for them. Great. But the word accessibility is not mentioned in that blog post at all.
No. Finish off, Spencer. What do you reckon? Am I being unfair with all the linkage to other kind of quasar fantasies? Is that reasonably fair? Or
No, but I think the problem in itself is going to be self-correcting, because although the premise of the article, Joe, and everything he said was accurate, what I see is like a couple 100 yards downfield is the issue is right now. This week, I experimented with two really amazing examples of AI. One of them was this ability to take a picture of somebody. Like I took my grandfather, who I haven't seen since I was a little kid. He died when I was younger, and it animates his face. I'll give you guys the link. Incredibly fascinating. And my mom was like crying. She hasn't seen him in 40 years. And that's just as easy as putting a picture for free online. The second is that there's a lot of tools now that came out. We referred to them a couple of weeks ago that generate amazing copy for your marketing purposes. A third example is something I've used for some time, which was not yet mainstream, but it allowed me on a beta to send a couple 100 hours of my voice in, and it completely digitized my voice. So now I'm able to take something in print and it reads it with my inflection, my voice, my, zany particular thing. So put those three things together. You will not need people to sit there and make content the old way. But to Joe's point, what problem does this create? The same problem that existed before people did Black Hat SEO stuff. It used to be, it took a crap ton of work to make a page, get listed in some search engine, whatever. Then they figured out how to use robots to do it. And then there's a trillion pages to be indexed. I do feel bad for podcasters, but it really makes no difference. People in the future are going to have to make podcasts that get listeners based upon their personality or their uniqueness, not based upon the fact that they're the only ones that are making podcasts. I think we've already crossed that threshold, to be honest, because I think there's already like a trillion real people making podcasts. But God knows when you unleash a fully automated, like animated video that looks and talks and acts like Spence reading as if it was live, or God forbid, a John Denwood version of this. I mean, what are you going to do to put that genie back in the bottle? It's just not going to happen.
What a gruesome prospect.
Good day, folks. Hello.
I'm having problems with my Bluetooth earphone. I can't hear you.
But, put this together.
That's a very professional. Joe's looking at me like, what is this idiot up to?
Wait, but put this together with the story about the Clubhouse, which, although I didn't have a comment, I've tried Clubhouse, and the Clubhouse thing to me has its own problems, not just on the privacy. It has the problem of, what if you got AI in there effing around with people? So now you've got the ability to generate John Locke's voice, and it's got some intelligence to be able to, when somebody says the word blank, respond.
When you say that, when you go to Paris, when you go to France, you see these mongrel French dogs, and it's got like the head of an Alsatian, the body of a poodle, and the tail of a corgi. And you think,
right,
as you were saying that these French mongrel dogs were coming into my mind, actually.
To Spencer's
I
point,
think Spencer is totally onto something. I think Joe and I are probably about to say the exact same thing.
J Trip, you go, man. You say
it. Like necessity is the mother of invention here, right? Like Clubhouse gets to, like Spencer's point about AI running, being a part of Clubhouse, like it very well could be the like reCAPTCHA of audio. Like someone may turn that into like scanning everyone's Clubhouse stuff and building an AI and bots to try and listen to people and then clone your voice and put something out there. Like that might be the whole reason why Clubhouse is as popular as it is that's the whole motivation behind it, and nobody told us. Like
the Howard Stern show for everybody.
Totally, that makes way more sense to me than the idea that they're pitching themselves. Actually,
right?
Oh.
Have you seen it's like called like deep fake Tom Cruise on TikTok? It is like horrifyingly convincing. And Spencer's point reminded me of that. Like,
Probably actually better than the real person, actually, isn't it?
I mean, they can do this now from
That's
a
awesome.
still picture. I mean, it's not perfect yet, but I'm saying even at the level of free, I'll get to the link for today, but like you drop in a picture of your relative that's been dead or a person from 100 years ago, and it's animating them. But they can now manipulate with the digital technology, the mouth, the eyes, the ears, and nose. Then they can do the voice, and then they have the transcript. But then the transcript can also be responsive based upon what other people say. And you start to see whether it's nefarious at its core or there's just bad actors going in there. Now we've got a real problem, right? Because Joe, the problem is no longer at the easy level of, gee, it's too bad there's too many podcasts. Now it's like every single thing people are doing, is it the real person or is it not the real person? And now you have to rethink the entire process. I mean, it's going to get really weird really fast. And when you combine that with all the politics, and I'm not going to get political today, but like how detached half of our political structure is in America. And if those people start getting belief in like AI generated stuff, God help all of us. I mean, you know,
might be for the better, actually. Let's go for our break and come back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I can guarantee you, listeners and viewers, this is the real Jonathan Denwood. Yes, I know you're shocked, listeners and viewers.
They'll be like Blade Runner. Did you guys, you know, Blade Runner, the original movie, the whole premise of the movie was that the robots became so real that they had to have a human being sit down and analyze, for anybody who's not seen the movie. And I think you can definitely see in the future, we'll have to rely upon the John Denwood's faux pas in setting up the show is the only way to distinguish that this is real.
I guarantee these are real people. This is a real panel.
Nobody can program that into a robot.
Are we in the process right now on this show? Are we inventing a kismet for deep fake spam?
Here we go. Right, before we go on to the next story, I want to talk about the real Jonathan Denwood and the real Spencer doing a free webinar for you listeners and viewers, and you need to attend this webinar where me and Spencer show you how, using the power of WordPress, we can build ClickFunnels landing pages and all sorts of marketing automation at literally a quarter of the price, and it's going to be better than ClickFunnels stuff and all these other SaaS products. You've got to attend this webinar. And when can you attend, listeners and viewers? Well, it's next Friday, the 12th of March at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time. All you got to do is go to the WP Tonic website. In the main menu is a wacky big bloody button that says webinar. You click it, you sign up, and you'll be able to ask me, the real me, and the real Spencer, any questions you got about marketing automation. And this is the real, where you can give extra value to your clients is by building marketing automations in WordPress. So you need to attend this bloody webinar. So book it for the 12th. So on to the next, on to the next story. Chrome is testing the follow button on websites. What's this about, John? Oh, John Locke?
Yeah, this is, I just seen this when you put this in the list, but my thought would be, it might be for Google Discover. I don't know if you're aware of what that is. Sometimes if you have like a Google app on your phone for things like two-factor authentication and stuff, I will see sometimes in this app like notifications of it's obviously like tracking like what I read and things like that, because Google Discover will give me suggestions of different content based probably on like tracking pixels and Google Analytics and things like that. But I would imagine that it probably is something like this. If you follow websites, it'll feed that into what it knows about you, like its profile of you. and possibly like into your Discover feed if you have one, or maybe into your search personalization. If you have Gmail, it's already got stuff in there, ads in there. So that's probably just more to do.
Will it be the real Jonathan though?
Oh, possibly.
I don't know. Do you?
Shadow profile.
All right. What do you reckon, Heather? What do you reckon? What is Google up to?
I mean, I think that, I mean, again, this article talks about Google Reader, and it's I think it's just like a new testing of bookmarks, a new way to do discovering and close to that. I mean, I honestly don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, I mean, understand it. And like, we have notifications already. It's an extension of notifications to let you know when the page has changed. And I think that's really all it is.
So what do you reckon, Joe? What do you reckon?
I used to own a domain called GoogleReaderVigil.com, where people could leave comments about how much they missed Google Reader. And I actually did like a cool little like candle with a CSS animation. It was neat. I spent too much time on it.
It sounds really nice, Joe.
Yeah, right. It was a nice little side project when I should have been doing real work. But as the story points out here, this has a little bit of a whiff of Google Reader, right? Where my expectation, just looking at face value, would have been I click follow, maybe Chrome notifies me when there's new content up on that site or whatever. But as somebody in the comments points out, I am wary of anything that Google does because of the long and growing list of things over on killedbygoogle.com, which I just found out they're killing Angular.js. Like, they're just killing Angular. That was the one I decided to learn many years ago. And now I'm going to have to move to something else, I guess. But the main question,
React.
I guess I'll have to learn React. I guess.
Yeah. Join Facebook.
There's always Node.
Yeah. There is Node. There's always Node.
Yes, that decision.
You can grunt.
JJ said you always feel dirty when you look at React, don't you, JJ?
It's just a Facebook thing. Yeah, I can't. I'm not down with it. Really, that I don't know.
Anything that has more than like a 10-step install process, I'm not about that. And I know there's like a thing that does it fast for you, but the first time I tried React, I was like, what do I got to do? Whatever.
I get it. I'm there with you. The idea of having, like, I like stuff that's built into the browser, like browser extensions that like work really well, like LastPass or 1Password, or like a really good one. You're like, man, this is great. Like the first time that like you installed Firebug in Firefox and you had an inspector, I was like, this is like the future of web development. Like, of course, this is exactly what we all need. Like when things are in the accepting cookies on websites shouldn't have been a thing we had to build into all of our websites all over the world for GDPR. Like that should have been built into the browser, that like, this is a thing that I accept or I don't. Like either I'm down with it or I'm not. And if I want to go through and like nitpick which site that I don't want or that I do want, then like that's on me, but it should have been built into the browser, but it never got that way. And so like the idea of following blogs from the browser feels really nice to me as an idea, but I don't want Google to be responsible for that. Like I want to own that experience myself. And I want who I follow or the websites that I follow to be in my cloud or in me or on my place where like they should live, or in my WordPress or someplace that isn't a Google-owned thing.
Well, what I think we're really talking about is a problem with podcasting, with posts. We've selected, it's linked to a new product at Spencer, or new service where you go to one of Spencer's websites and you can put in what the best selection of plugins. The problem is curation, and I still don't think there's great tools for curation, of the best podcasts or the best blog posts, and that's why a lot of people got upset when Reader got junked, because it was one of the few effective ways that you could curate content. And that's why the power users of Google Reader got a bit peeved when they dropped it, because it was really useful for those people. And there's it must be just, it's not the technology, it just must be really, really hard to get traction, or there must be something about the problem, because you got all these like podcasting networks, but I don't think any of them are really taken off that big. There's a lot of people that have tried. Am I speaking any truth here, Joe, or am I just blabbing?
Well,
yeah.
I think probably the nice thing about what J-Trip said was
Oh, I was blabbing then.
No. I mean, you're making a good point here, right? But what I liked about is that owning your experience in an increasingly algorithm-driven world is a nice feeling, right? I don't go on Facebook because most of the things on Facebook aggravate me, right? I have to click the see latest tweets on twitter.com so that I don't see things that aggravate me. With podcasting, I think that's the great thing about podcasting too, right? Is that there's no algorithm based thing telling you what podcast to listen to. You need to subscribe in whatever app you want, right? And maybe Anchor is trying to change that, but at the moment, right now, we get to pick our podcast app of choice. We get to subscribe to the podcast we listen to, and we get to really curate that. So I suspect follow, right? If it's RSS-y, we're probably going to see the content we want, but algorithmically curated, or maybe with ads in there, or maybe the sites that use Google AMP will get, or I'm sorry, not Google AMP, just AMP. Other people contribute to that, priority or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and Jonathan, I think like stop me if you've heard this one before, but that was one of the things when I was working on WordPress.com and working on reblogs and follows and likes and all the more socially stuff back in the day that I really wanted that never happened was I want a curated list of what the people that I care about are into, that so that I can kind of bounce to the next cool thing. Like I want to build my own algorithm in a way that I trust. And not a lot of platforms I feel like have really emphasized or nailed that experience. I think Apple Music is kind of trying, but because I can see who my friends are, what music they're listening to, and it gives me a station of all the stuff that they're into, and I can kind of bounce in between that. That's pretty cool, but it's just they're getting their feet wet with the idea. But I want to see the blogs that you're subscribed to, or the things that you're reading, or the authors that you like on the web, and it's just impossible to see that. And so I have to find it myself, and we all have to. It bums me out that there's so much content out there that people are authoring, but we don't have a good mechanism to curate our own algorithm to find what's awesome.
No, so I just see. Let's move on to the next story, because I want to cover story 5. When it's not burnout. Now, this came on my radar, and I added it this morning. So, Heather, I don't know if you had time to read this particular piece. What did you think of it?
Oh man, this is a whole big thing. So the people, I mean, I have a whole set of writing and talks that I do about burnout, and the problem is that there are a lot of stress triggers associated with burnout, but also these same stress triggers can be associated with a toxic environment. And in this particular issue, this plugin developer was being attacked. They were being trolled, and it was causing a toxic environment. It was online harassment. It was over and over, and every day getting getting the same things over and over again caused them to feel like inordinate stress that triggered the same things. And like burnout is stress like cubed. It is like you are stressed, but it is a type of stress that is specifically associated with work. So like when you have gotten so stressed that you just cannot associate with things anymore, that you're detached from work, that you have no interest in things, that you are at a heightened state or like a depressed state constantly and all that, like their mood is terrible, but it's triggered by like a bad manager, a toxic environment, all sorts of things. So I think that harassment absolutely can cause this. And like the hardest thing that anyone can do is realize, one, that they're in it, and two, get out of it. So you always generally need somebody to help you. But with harassment, it's hard because most people don't believe you. They don't believe it's happening to you, especially if you're a woman or a minority or something. And if it's like, even if it's a man and you're being harassed, most people tell you just suck it up. So yeah, there's a whole ball of worms in this story, and I'm curious to see what other people think.
So what do you reckon, Spencer? I had such mixed, when I was reading this article, Spencer, I kind of swung from one side to, I had really very widening different feelings about it. So I'm a bit confused about what my position is.
So this is a problem that, this isn't the first time this has come to the public view, but this is a problem that originates from the origins of how the WordPress community was set up. It was set up for a small scale amount of, let's say, interaction between people that were all sort of geeky and interacted at the level of, I know you sort of, so I'm going to talk to you as if like I know you. But then all of the stuff that we talk about tongue in cheek every day about our fearless leader and so forth started to grow, and the money got involved. And now it's tens of millions of people, many of whom are struggling in a competitive world to make a livelihood of some kind in a space where a douchebag, not her, but other douchebags, like I talk about Otto, can now unilaterally take away everything that they've done. And I call him out because he still continues to post that way. But the point is, in the early days, Otto would do his douchebaggery and it would be kind of funny, cute, and a bunch of people would get online. And we all remember the whole Chris Pearson incident where Matt himself got involved for this and that and so forth. But we all kind of chuckled because it was like we're all sitting around the water cooler having beers kind of thing. Now you've got a problem. You've got a community of people that take this seriously, competing against a company that's clearly out to win financially, but it's still being moderated, or at least up until this point, moderated in a way that one person anonymously can literally take away somebody else's perception, if not actual livelihood. And there's no judge, there's no jury, there's no process or due process, there's no appeal mechanism. And what do people do when they're desperate and everything that they think is important is taken away from them? They act wrong and irrationally. And while everything this person on the receiving end is doing is wrong, Mika is receiving the brunt of it because she just happened to do her job before they changed the policy of going anonymous. How are they going to fix this? I have no freaking idea, because the anger that this person is experiencing is exponential to what you and I and all of us joke about every week. We all have our annoyances at how stupid Automattic is running this shit show. But at the same time, we appreciate it's where our livelihoods exist, right? I mean, if they just closed down WordPress.org, we'd have to really figure out where to go with a lot of what we do. But does that excuse it? No. So anyway, in sum, I do feel terrible because no person deserves what she's getting. And I don't think that she had any inclination to do what she did to that individual. But the mechanism that she was granted to deal with whatever this person did was wrong and broken and outlived its useful life by 8 to 10 years at least. And I have to say, I don't mind it. I would love it if this person who makes these decisions would come on. But can we please use this as a starting point for an open discussion about how Automattic should run WordPress.org going forward, instead of pretending like it's all roses and butterflies and stuff? Because it's just not.
You're just not on message, Spencer. You know, you're not really a positive member of the community, Spencer. This is the problem, Spencer.
I want to add one thing, because I've dealt with my whole online life with trolls, and I have had customers, and not to the extent of being exposed like Mika, but like I've had customers in a community of a few thousand paying customers where literally one guy is upset with whatever's happening, and that person is threatening me and my kids and stuff like that. And what I'm blessed with is the ability to give him back his money and say, I'm really sorry. I don't know what's wrong with you, but here's all your money and a little extra. Good day. She can't give him back anything. You know what I mean? That's the problem, is that it's like she was the executioner over somebody she didn't really know or have a reason to know the details of. She's just doing her job. So I understand that it's impossible to put that genie back in the bottle, but therein is the rub, because you never know how your decision-making in this kind of thing is going to affect somebody. And if they're desperate enough, then they're going to become a real threat.
So, Joe, what do you reckon? I'm never surprised anymore by the bad behaviour of some people. Actually, it's quite. It always surprises me to some extent. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I really feel for Mika here, because let me tell you, I one time tweeted that Philly sports fans are the meanest fandom, and for about 24 hours, people in Philly told me to kill myself. Which, like, driving my point home, thank you for that. But it, as a well-adjusted adult male, who it really wore on me. I can't imagine going through this for 3 years. The thing that, this is not advice for her, because I can't empathize with what she's going through, really. But the thing I tell myself is that these people are internet terrorists. I've had people threaten me over AIM in college, and I said, fine, let's meet and we'll duke it out. And you know what they never do? Because they need to, they're hiding behind a screen. If this person, I can't guarantee, but I would bet that if this person saw her at a WordCamp, he would run away, because people like that are cowards. But it's not fair. It's ridiculous. I'm glad that they did finally go to an anonymized plugin team, because no one deserves that. No one deserves that. So if this guy's listening, you're a coward. You know,
Yeah,
knock it off.
So what do you reckon, JJ?
Sorry, I was muted. This is a lot. Like, I read it, and I read it a couple of times, and Mika is a person who I've known from WordPress.org for a very long time. And I think, like anyone that you have known for a long time and that you have worked closely together with or not closely together with, that there are agreements and disagreements, and there are ups and there are downs. And like,
see, okay, I just want to interrupt, JJ. I just want to put this to you. Why isn't this an article on the Tavern? Why doesn't the leader of Automattic make a personal statement saying, this is fucking out of order, and you maggots, fuck off, you know, go and die somewhere on your own and leave my staff alone? Why doesn't he show some bloody balls and some leadership?
So, I mean, I'm happy to answer that question too, right? But like, Mika's not employed by Automattic. Matt isn't her boss. So like, it's still part of the WordPress community team and people that sort of they sort of volunteer their time, or that their job is to volunteer their time to staff certain areas of WordPress.org. And so it's not it doesn't really work that way, even though we want it to, or that we imagine that maybe that would simplify some of this stuff. But like WordPress.org has a code of conduct and clearly like a no harassment sort of policy. But what can you do? Like in Mika's post, when this goes international, and you can't, it's bigger than WordPress.org. This is just an internet terrorist who is taking the empowering themselves to prioritize what Mika is experiencing or had experienced and will probably, as a result of her position and abilities on WordPress.org, no one should have to go through, right? Like at the sake of stating the obvious, it's terrible and no one should have to experience that. And like doesn't try to speak up from on high. I don't know what good it does other than acknowledge the
Your mic's off, John.
There we go. I think it was Powers under. I'm upsetting a few people, maybe. There we go.
This is good timing. Very mysterious timing.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, you know, as you hinted, Spencer, I actually think this is worse than some person that, you know, doesn't like you, or it's, to me, this was on a different level. Do you think I'm on the right path there, Spencer?
I mean, the difficulty is that, you see, when you normally interact with a powerful entity, you owe them money like it's utility, or you're a citizen like a government, or you're in a school. But in most relationships, you don't have this one-to-many power gifted to anonymous strangers, at least in our American current, what we'll call republic. So it's very unusual for people to be in a situation where they're given this perception of you can do anything you want and grow anything you want, and magically through your thousands of hours of hard work you have some sort of a livelihood, and yet some nameless, faceless, otherwise well-intentioned but doing their job person can go, oh, looks like you didn't meet the thing, and push a button and it's all taken away from you without due process. I mean, drunk drivers get their day in court too.
Yeah.
And I think there's the problem, is that Matt et al. Did not conceive of the day when there would be tens of millions of people under the thumb of Mika or Otto or Fred or Joe or Bob or Susie, where they go look at a list of arbitrary rules and go, yeah, looks like you did wrong. Boom, goodbye. Oh, you did it twice? I'm totally cutting you off. And that's what's going on here. And it's not that there's an absolute best way to do this. I'm not suggesting it. I'm just saying this is clearly not a healthy environment of a 1 to millions authoritarian environment where you can have whatever you built taken away from you, even if you did wrong stuff. Because look at the objective hypocrisy of Yoast's shenanigans from a few months ago. And, oh, Yoast, yeah, oh, you're just such a silly, misogynistic gang of folks over there. That's fine. And, oh, you advertised inside of your plugin for free in violation of the code. No problem. And even Elementor, who I love, oh, you guys violate the GPL because you require people to phone home now for your plugin that's supposed to be open source. No problem. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Jetpack and so forth. But you're a little guy. You buy into the thing. It's tough when you see all the hypocrisy and then they do that to you. So,
what do you reckon, John?
Well, I do think that there need to be. It's tough being a woman in technology. There's lots of cases where people have left the tech altogether because they were getting death threats, because they were getting harassed, all kinds of things. And it's scary. It's scary because I don't understand why someone would, you know, make somebody like, you know, fearful of them. You know, hey, your plugin got rejected, go fix it. You know, but to send like 600 emails and to like, you know, bother people for like 2 years, it's ridiculous. But it's scary. But you know, we have this global community, and we have to have different ways of enforcing it. You know, make sure that this person is like banned from like everything. And it doesn't matter if Mika's a volunteer or works for Automattic or not. It's like not okay. And it's like Spencer and all the other panelists said, you know, when this whole thing was conceived, it was like a handful of people. And now it's like a global community, a worldwide company, and they are still relying on volunteers and not protecting them. And yeah, that needs to change.
Yes, so Heather, to finish off, I think as I was reading this, Heather, because I've always had really mixed feelings, like digital journalists, influencers, when they're complaining that they're being harassed. There was always a part of me that felt, well, I always felt that in some ways Americans were a little bit soft when it came back getting criticism, because obviously I come from England, and the media in England are notoriously brutal, and just general discussions between different people in Britain, they tends to get a little bit more, how do I say, I'm struggling for the right words, but it's definitely a different way of public discussion in America. But I've changed my opinion to some extent, because you could say to like female journalists or other people that are using social platforms, well, you just need to just get rid of your account. You don't have to be on that platform, but they actually do, don't they? Because to be an effective influencer and a journalist, or to be effective in any way in 2021, you've got to be on these platforms, haven't you? So is it the actual platforms they need to do a lot more to protect, people from, there is a certain level of criticism, you've got to accept a certain level of criticism, but then there's some level where it becomes harassment, doesn't it?
Honestly, I mean, I think it's just allowing more people to be there, and it just amplifies the number of people that are going to see you. I mean, I get heckled in person, and I'll get heckled online. Like half my YouTube videos just have comments of like boobs, like that's. But I mean, I just ignore them. I mean, but. Like, I mean, I was at South by when Gamergate was happening, and I just remember being in the panels where that was coming out, and I felt so terrible. But I was like, this just wasn't my experience. Like as a game designer, like I never had this girl's experience, and I couldn't understand. And like as a woman, I'm like, I guess I feel that sometimes it's the person that attracts that. So I mean it's some people are going to be heckled and can't handle it, and I think when you feel that, like it's just the sharks keep going after the chum.
Yeah, it's really difficult, because I personally like a good argument. I like a good disagreement. I like getting into it. I think it's part of the creative process to have an honest discussion, but I don't.
I think it's worse now. I mean, I think people like I think we've always been bullied. Like people, like as kids, were trained to do that, to root out who were the weaker, and I mean, it's inherent in who we are. However, I think it is absolutely worse now for people, men and women.
All right. Right, let's wrap this up. Let's go on to our recommendations of the week. Please put them in the chat. It really helps me, panel. So my recommendation was something that Spencer put me on to, and I'm trying to find it now. And how do you pronounce it, Spencer? Trippato. It's a really fantastic. Pardon?
It makes puppets.
It makes puppets. I love when they choose names that have no connection to the actual product. I don't totally get it, but there we go. But apart from the name, folks, it really enables you to build very sophisticated forms, surveys, all sorts of things, and it's got an inbuilt logic engine. It's a really fantastic product, and they got a free plan, and they've got some inexpensive paid plans, and I've been playing around with it, and I've been quite impressed. So, JJ, have you got something you can recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Shout out to David Bissett, Dimension Media on Twitter, who had tweeted it a while ago or a couple days ago. There's a plugin that is relatively new that currently has like fewer than 10 WordPress installs that it counts, but is pretty cool, called Unagi by Handy Plugins. And all it does is very simple, and so it's a plugin that I like. And all it does is take anything that's hooked to the admin notices hook in WP Admin and just dump them into a notifications page. And so it just clears out all of the terrible notice cruft on every single page and just put them in a place. And so no overly complicated notification center, no like added code that people have to support in their plugins to make it work here or there. It just takes all of them and goes, put them all on one page and it's done. And so I think for most people, it probably solves a pretty major problem.
Put that into chat. I'll put it out all my websites tomorrow. All right. Joe, have you got something you want to recommend?
Yeah, I was really struggling. That's why I haven't dropped a link in, because there's a lot of good stuff to recommend. But there's this app. I made a video about it over on my YouTube channel. It's called Sip. I will drop the link in the chat as soon as I find it. But it's a little menu bar utility where you click on it and then it creates a little dropper, and you can grab any color on the screen as a hex value or an RGB value or HSL value, however. And I use it every single day when I'm making websites or trying to find the right color for graphics. It's a super handy utility. It's very cheap. Or if you have Setapp, it comes in a Setapp subscription. So I'm a big fan of it. Super handy, probably useful for a lot of people watching.
Oh, yeah, I'll put it into chat. And listeners and viewers, you find all the links to these recommended products, services, whatever, in the show notes on the WP Tonic website. So, Spencer, what got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
I do, yeah. I'm laughing. Well, first of all, that Unagi plugin looks terrific. And I'm laughing because I just saw the Ross Unagi from Friends, if you know that reference. I'm recommending something else, and I was trying to do it. My wireless keyboard no longer allows me to press the space command, a space bar. So I was trying to type with the space bar, and it launches Windows. So I was just laughing at like my own game. Anyway, the thing I was talking about earlier is called myheritage.com/deep-nostalgia. You go over there, drop in a picture of anybody, living or dead, John Denwood, Matt Mullenweg, Otto, anybody, and it will animate the picture in the most fascinating way. And if you actually never knew the person, it's even more compelling, but it's just an immediate, it's free if you want, and you can download the result. It's a fascinating thing. If you have some family member that you haven't seen for a while that has a dead relative and you want to, like my mom, I sent her a picture of her dad when he was in high school and I animated it. She hasn't seen him. It was like, oh my God, it's captivatingly interesting how far this has come to be a free thing, which again leads me to, we can talk and argue all day long and it's fun about WordPress today and blog posts today and podcasting today, but every Friday comes this fast. Can you imagine in 2 years what we're going to be talking about here, if we're even talking here? Because maybe we'll be on the virtual Star Wars chessboard and holograms in 2 years.
I'm going to stay with my original panel. Real people with real views, Spencer.
We'll all be contained in one of those Boston Robotics dog characters running around some, police state, biting people with our virtual avatars.
I don't know. I don't know where you get this from, Spencer. John, have you got something you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, this is it's a primer on WordPress maintenance. So what it is, why it's important, is put together by Matt Anderson, who is the Mattalorian on Twitter. So go check it out.
Well, and Heather, have you got something you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers, our beloved Unicorn Whisperer?
Yeah, so I've been playing around a lot with Deep Dream and AI. So I'm deepdreamgenerator.com, so you can play around and generate completely AI art.
Oh, well, put it into chat, Heather. I'm sure I have time to play with that. Thank you, panel. It's a slightly longer show, but we had a lot of good stories to discuss. I thought it was a great discussion. Hopefully, listeners and viewers, you will join us next week for another WP Tonic Roundtable show. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.